We have discussed various different techniques and also vulnerabilities which can be apparent in cyber attacks. We're now going to talk about some of the effects, some of the impacts of cyber attacks. So if we are talking about impacts, because we'll also talk about consequences in the next video, we're talking about the immediate effect when we mention impact. So what is the immediate effect on individuals and organizations? So really, following an attack, what is happening straight away? And usually these impacts directly relate to how the attack unfolded. So often they are related to sort of how the attack worked. So for example, one of the impacts of a ransomware attack, we looked at ransomware in the malware video, is that there will be a denial of service to authorized users. We mentioned the term DOS and denial of service back in the video on DDoSing and botnets, because a denial of service attack can be where you just spam a server to try and overload it, but generally speaking, a denial of service attack is any situation where we can't access the service we want to, and a service can be anything we want to access. So our computer, a website, anything like that. And so with ransomware, the whole concept is that the attacker will lock your computer, will encrypt all of your files, and make you pay a ransom in order to gain access back to your service, back to your computer. And so because of a ransomware attack, you would be denied service to your computer. We have denial of service, DOS, as an attack itself and also as an impact of an attack. So now we have a few more categories of impact which the exam board put forward, mostly to do with data. So if an attacker is stealing private data in an attack, this is called data theft. And I say private data because this is not data which was meant to be seen by the attacker. So for example, if you have a hacker, by definition a hacker is going in somewhere without normal means of access. They may exploit a vulnerability in the code in a server, so a bug in a server, to steal files about a company's latest innovation. This is that company's intellectual property. They should not be stealing it as private data, and so they may steal it to try and benefit their own company. So this private data may not be about an individual person, but if it is about an individual person and is considered personal information, things like your date of birth, your address, your phone number, your bank details, your national insurance number, personal bits of information which should be kept private to anyone, not just to an attacker. So if this data is stolen, then this is considered identity theft. Anything which is specific to a person is part of their identity, and so if you steal this data, that you are committing identity theft. And from this information, the attacker may use this data to commit fraud. Fraud being where you are trying to trick someone else by lying, essentially. So you might have, for example, maybe an attacker who has used a phishing email to get some bank details from a victim. A victim looks at the email, which is from a bank, or looks like it's from their bank, and puts in their details. It goes instead to the attacker. And based on that information which has been stolen, they may commit identity theft and also take out a loan in the victim's name. A loan being some money which is borrowed. Of course, it's got to be paid back, but the attacker has put it in the victim's name by stealing their identity, and so the victim has borrowed money without even realizing. If an attacker is deleting data as part of their attack permanently, right, so if they just delete the data, this is called data destruction. So if you are destroying data, you are deleting it effectively. So, if a hacker is dropping a database table, that would be deleting it. So dropping is the word for deleting when we talk about databases. Clearly, if a company's got all of their data inside a one database table and that gets deleted, if it gets dropped, that's going to be a major issue for the company. A slightly more subtle impact is where data is manipulated. So this is where an attacker is indirectly changing data to meet their needs. So if they need some data in the database table, they won't delete it, but they may try and sort of persuade someone to change it, which is what I mean by indirect. They're not just changing it, they're going to sort of persuade someone else to do it usually. So they might use pretexting, come up with a pretext, maybe based on some identity theft. They've stolen the identity of maybe a co-worker and are using that as a pretext. They might then use that ruse to persuade an employee at a company to change the ownership of the victim's car. So maybe a car's been stolen, it's in the victim's name, they want to try and get rid of that association so they can maybe sell on the car, and so they may persuade someone who works at maybe the government to change the ownership, and you may use pretexting to do this. So they're trying to manipulate the data as opposed to just getting rid of it. And data manipulation is usually done when they can't manage to modify it themselves. Of course, the attacker would prefer to go and just change the ownership. They would rather do that than just have to go through the pretexting and so on. But they can't always, because the security may be good. But if the security is not good, they may be able to directly change data to meet their needs, which is what data modification is. So literally going in and changing it, maybe via a backdoor, which was installed with a Trojan, They may use that backdoor to go in and change the results for maybe an exam the hacker had taken. If a hacker didn't do very well in, say, a university exam, he or she may want to go in and change that result. But of course, if the security is better, they may have to either manipulate it or maybe even destroy it. Destroying it is likely easier than modifying it.